The galaxy watched in horror as Earth unlocked the Forbidden Protocol. The emergency session of the Galactic Security Council convened in the deepest chambers of Station Alpha 7, a massive structure orbiting the neutral zone between 14 different star systems. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered, their faces, or equivalent features, showing expressions of barely contained terror. Admiral Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet stood at the central podium, his four arms gesturing frantically as he addressed the assembled delegates. The insectoid commander's mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke. "Honored delegates," Zethkar began, his voice carrying the weight of desperation. "We face an unprecedented crisis. The Void Plague has consumed 17 star systems in the past 3 months. Over 40 billion lives have been lost." Council of Rex of the Aquatic Republics rippled her translucent fins in distress. "The plague consumes everything organic, Admiral. Our bioships dissolve within hours of exposure. Even our most advanced sterilization protocols are useless." "It's not just biological," added Minister Colt from the Silicon Collective, his crystalline body flickering with worried energy patterns. "The plague adapts. It learns. It's consuming our quantum processors now, turning our own technology against us." In the viewing galleries above, representatives from dozens of species watched the proceedings with growing alarm. The Void Plague had started in the Outer Rim territories, but it was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. Entire civilizations were being reduced to empty husks within days. Ambassador Thane of the Draconian Empire slammed his scaled fist on the council table. "We need to implement the Scorched Galaxy Protocol immediately. Sterilize every infected system with solar ignition charges." "That would mean destroying billions of uninfected worlds," protested Council of Rex. "We cannot commit genocide on such a scale." "Then what do you propose?" Thane snarled. "We sit here and debate while the plague consumes everything?" The chamber erupted in angry voices as representatives argued over increasingly desperate solutions. Some called for mass evacuation to distant galaxies. Others demanded the deployment of experimental weapons that might kill the plague but would devastate countless worlds. Admiral Zethkar raised all 4 arms for silence. "There is one option we have not discussed." The chamber fell quiet. Every delegate turned to look at the insectoid commander. "The Terran protocols," Zethkar said quietly. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Delegates leaped from their seats, shouting in dozens of languages. The translator systems struggled to keep up with the flood of horrified responses. "Absolutely not," roared Ambassador Thane. "Those protocols are forbidden for a reason." "The Terrans nearly destroyed their own star system with those weapons," added Minister Colt. "We classified them as a galactic threat specifically because of what they're capable of." Council of Rex's fins turned a deep purple with fear. The psychological warfare alone would traumatize every species in the galaxy. They don't just destroy enemies, they break their will to exist. Admiral Zethkar waited for the chaos to subside. "The Void Plague has proven immune to every conventional weapon we possess. The Terrans developed their protocols specifically for threats that couldn't be defeated through normal means." "And what makes you think they'll help?" demanded Ambassador Thane. "They've been isolationist for over a century. They haven't responded to any diplomatic overtures since the Containment Accords." "Because," Zethkar replied grimly, "the plague has reached the Sol system. Earth is now under direct threat." The silence that followed was deafening. Every delegate understood the implications. If Earth fell to the Void Plague, the most terrifying military force in the galaxy would be consumed. But if Earth survived by using their forbidden protocols, the galaxy might face something even worse than the plague. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Colorado Mountains, General Victoria Kane stood before a holographic display showing the spread of the Void Plague. The 3-dimensional map painted a grim picture, a growing sphere of dead space expanding toward the Sol system. Time to contact? Kane asked her aide, Colonel David Park. 18 hours until the plague reaches the outer system defense perimeter. Park replied. 36 hours until it hits Earth's orbital platforms. Kane studied the tactical display with the cold efficiency that had made her the youngest general in Earth Defense Command history. At 42, she had already overseen the development of weapons systems that most species considered crimes against nature. Status of the Lazarus Array? She asked. Fully operational, General. All 7 orbital platforms are synchronized and ready for deployment. And the Medusa network? Online and standing by. The quantum entanglement matrices are stable across all target zones. Kane nodded. The Lazarus Array and Medusa network were Earth's most closely guarded secrets. Weapons systems developed after humanity's first contact with the galaxy had gone catastrophically wrong. What the aliens didn't know was that Earth's isolation hadn't been chosen. It had been imposed by necessity. General? Called out Dr. Lisa Chen from the research station. I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple fleets jumping in. Kane turned to the display, showing dozens of alien vessels emerging from hyperspace. Her expression didn't change, but her hand moved instinctively to the authorization codes at her belt. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. Multiple sources. They're requesting emergency diplomatic contact. Put it through, Kane ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Zethkar's insectoid features. Behind him, Kane could see representatives from a dozen different species, all looking desperate. General Kane, Zethkar began. I am Admiral Zethkar of the Galactic Security Council. We request emergency consultation regarding the Void Plague threat. Kane's expression remained neutral. Admiral, Earth has been under galactic quarantine for over a century. You've made it clear that our presence is unwelcome in galactic affairs. The situation has changed. Zethkar replied urgently. The plague has consumed 17 systems. It's approaching Earth now. We need... You need our help, Kane interrupted. The same help you've refused to accept for 100 years. Ambassador Thane pushed forward on the alien transmission. General, we know about your weapons. We know what you're capable of. But those protocols are too dangerous. They could destabilize the entire galaxy. Kane's smile was cold. And yet, here you are, begging us to use them. We're not begging, Thane snarled. We're warning you. If you deploy those weapons, we'll have no choice but to consider Earth a hostile force. You'll consider us hostile? Kane's voice carried a dangerous edge. Admiral, with respect, you're already in our star system without permission. Your fleets are positioning themselves around our planet. Some might consider that an act of war. Colonel Park stepped forward. General, we're detecting energy buildups on several alien vessels. They're charging weapons. Kane's hand moved to her authorization codes. Admiral Zethkar, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to order your fleets to stand down. If you don't, I'll assume you've come here to finish what the plague started. General, please, Zethkar pleaded. We're not here to fight. We're here because we're desperate. The plague has adapted to every weapon we've tried. It's learning faster than we can develop countermeasures. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you quarantined the one species that specializes in dealing with impossible threats. Kane replied. The tension in the command center was palpable. Every human officer watched the displays showing alien fleets surrounding Earth. They all knew that if shooting started, the planet would be in grave danger. General, Dr. Chen called out urgently. I'm detecting plague signatures at the edge of the system. It's arrived ahead of schedule. Kane's attention snapped to the sensor displays. Dark tendrils of energy were spreading through the outer system, consuming asteroids and space debris. The Void Plague had reached Earth. All fleets, this is Admiral Zethkar, came the panicked transmission. The plague is here. Implement emergency containment protocols. On the main display, Kane watched as alien vessels began firing various energy weapons at the approaching plague. The beams struck the dark tendrils, but seemed to have no effect. If anything, the plague appeared to be growing stronger. "It's feeding on their energy weapons," Dr. Chen reported. "Every shot they fire is making it more powerful." "All alien vessels, cease fire immediately," Kane ordered on the open channel. "You're feeding the plague." "General," Zethkar's voice was desperate now. "Our weapons are useless. What do we do?" Kane looked at the displays showing the plague spreading through the outer system. In hours it would reach Earth's orbital platforms. In days it would consume the planet, unless she authorized the use of weapons that the galaxy had banned for good reason. Dr. Chen, analysis of the plague's structure. "It's unlike anything we've seen," Chen replied. "It's not biological or technological. It's something else entirely. It exists in a state of quantum superposition, constantly shifting between matter and energy. Can our protocols handle it?" Chen hesitated. "The Lazarus Array was designed to deal with threats that exist outside normal space-time. The Medusa network can target quantum states directly. But General, if we use them, we reveal capabilities that make every species in the galaxy a potential enemy," Kane finished. "I know." She looked at the authorization codes in her hand. Red for Lazarus Array, black for Medusa network, blue for the protocol that even she hoped she'd never have to use. "Admiral Zethkar," Kane said on the open channel, "I'm ordering all alien vessels to retreat to minimum safe distance. What we're about to do will have significant side effects." "General, what are you planning?" Zethkar asked. "We're going to show you why Earth was quarantined in the first place." The evacuation alarms echoed through the orbital defense platforms as human personnel sealed themselves in the deepest, most heavily shielded sections of the stations. The Lazarus Array, 7 massive structures positioned around Earth's orbit, began to hum with power that registered on sensors across the solar system. Admiral Zethkar watched from his flagship as the human orbital platforms reconfigured themselves. What had appeared to be standard defense satellites suddenly unfolded into structures that defied conventional physics. The platforms seemed to bend space around them, creating distortions that made his sensors scream warnings. "What are they doing?" demanded Ambassador Thane. "Something we've never seen before," Zethkar replied grimly. On Earth, General Kane stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays as the plague continued its approach. The dark tendrils had consumed 3 of Jupiter's moons and were spreading toward the inner system. "Lazarus Array at full power," reported Colonel Park. "All 7 platforms synchronized and ready for deployment. Medusa network status: online and standing by. Quantum entanglement matrices are stable." Kane nodded and inserted her authorization codes. "Initiate Lazarus protocol. Target: Void Plague manifestation. Authorization: Kane, Victoria, General, Earth Defense Command." The response was immediate and terrifying. The 7 orbital platforms discharged energy beams that didn't travel through space. They simply appeared at their targets, bypassing the normal limitations of physics. The beams struck the plague tendrils with effects that registered as impossible on every sensor in the system. Where the beams hit, reality itself seemed to rewrite. The plague didn't just die. It ceased to have ever existed. The consumed moons of Jupiter reappeared as if they had never been touched. Space debris that had been dissolved reformed perfectly. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Chen. "They're not just destroying the plague. They're reversing its effects on the quantum level." But the plague was learning. Even as parts of it were erased from existence, other sections began to adapt. The dark tendrils changed their quantum signature, becoming resistant to the Lazarus Array's effects. "It's adapting to our weapons," reported the tactical officer. "The next wave is showing immunity to the Lazarus effect." Kane's expression didn't change. "Initiate Medusa Network. Full deployment." If the Lazarus Array had been terrifying, the Medusa Network was something from nightmares. Invisible fields of quantum disruption spread out from Earth, targeting not just the plague, but the very possibility of its existence. The network didn't just attack what was, it attacked what could be. Admiral Zethkar felt his ship's AI beginning to scream warnings as the quantum fields passed through his vessel. The network wasn't targeting his ship, but the mere presence of that much quantum manipulation was causing reality to become unstable. "All ships, emergency retreat," he ordered. "Get us out of this system now." "Admiral, we can't leave," protested one of his officers. "The plague—" "Look at your sensors," Zethkar interrupted. "Look at what the humans are doing to space itself." The Medusa Network's effects were spreading beyond the plague. Quantum fields were rewriting the fundamental constants of physics in localized areas. Gravity fluctuated wildly. Time flowed at different rates in different regions. The very structure of spacetime was being used as a weapon. And it was working. The plague, which had consumed 17 star systems, was being systematically erased from existence. Not destroyed. Erased. As if it had never been. But something was wrong. The plague wasn't just adapting to the quantum attacks. It was learning to use them. "General," Dr. Chen's voice carried a note of panic. "The plague is incorporating our quantum effects. It's using the Medusa Network to spread faster." Kane watched the displays as the plague began to twist the quantum fields to its own purpose. What had been a weapon of erasure was becoming a tool of consumption. The plague was learning to exist in the spaces between existence itself. "Shut down the Medusa Network," she ordered. "General, if we shut it down now, the plague will be immune to both our primary weapons," Colonel Park warned. Kane looked at the tactical display showing the plague growing stronger with each passing moment. The Lazarus Array was no longer effective. The Medusa Network was feeding the enemy. Earth's two most powerful weapons had failed. She reached for the blue authorization code she had hoped never to use. "General," Dr. Chen said quietly, "you're not seriously considering—" "Protocol 7, Kane said firmly. "Full authorization. My responsibility." The command center fell silent. Every officer knew what Protocol 7 meant. It was the option that Earth had developed after first contact had gone wrong. The protocol that had led to their quarantine. The weapon that could win any war, but at a cost that might destroy the user. "General," Colonel Park said carefully, "Protocol 7 requires a conscious decision to commit species suicide. Are you prepared for that level of responsibility?" Kane looked at the displays showing the plague spreading through the solar system. It had adapted to everything they'd thrown at it. It was learning to use their own weapons against them. And beyond Earth's system, it was consuming the galaxy. "Admiral Zethkar," she said on the open channel, "I'm ordering all alien vessels to retreat to a minimum distance of 50 light-years. What we're about to do will have consequences that reach far beyond this system." "General, what is Protocol 7? Zethkar asked. Kane's smile was grim. "It's the reason your species quarantined us. It's what happens when humans decide that survival requires breaking every rule of civilized warfare." She inserted the blue authorization code and spoke the words that would change the galaxy forever. "Initiate Protocol 7. Target, Void Plague and all associated quantum signatures. Authorization, Kane, Victoria, General, Earth Defense Command. Species override acknowledged. Consequences accepted." What happened next would be studied by xenobiologists and military theorists for millennia. The humans didn't just deploy a weapon. They deployed themselves. Every human on Earth, in the orbital stations, and in the deep space installations, suddenly became part of a vast network. Not a technological network, but something far more fundamental, a network of consciousness, will, and absolute determination. The plague had learned to adapt to energy, to matter, to quantum states, but it had never encountered anything like human stubbornness amplified to a galactic scale. Admiral Zethkar felt his ship's sensors overload as the quantum signature of the entire Sol system changed. 8 billion human minds, linked through technology that bordered on the impossible, focused on a single goal, the complete and permanent destruction of the Void Plague. The effect was immediate and absolute. The plague didn't just die, it was rejected by reality itself. The quantum fields that had allowed it to exist were rewritten by the combined will of an entire species. The dark tendrils that had consumed star systems simply ceased, not because they were destroyed, but because humanity had collectively decided they couldn't exist. But the cost was staggering. The humans who had participated in the network were changed. Their neural patterns had been permanently altered. They could no longer function as individual consciousnesses. They had become something new, something that existed partially outside normal space-time. "My God," whispered Dr. Chen, her voice hollow. "What have we done?" General Kane stood in the command center, feeling the weight of 8 billion altered minds pressing against her consciousness. The plague was gone. The galaxy was safe. But humanity as it had existed was finished. "General," Colonel Park's voice seemed to come from very far away. "The alien fleets are requesting communication." Kane nodded, knowing that this conversation would determine the future of both humanity and the galaxy. The screens flickered to life, showing Admiral Zethkar and the other representatives, their faces showing expressions of awe and terror. "General Kane," Zethkar began carefully, "the plague is gone. Our sensors show no trace of it anywhere in the galaxy." "How?" "We broke the rules," Kane replied simply. "We used our own consciousness as a weapon. We turned our entire species into a quantum effect that could rewrite reality." "The cost?" Council of Rex said quietly. "What was the cost?" Kane looked around the command center at her officers, all of whom were struggling to maintain individual identity in the face of the network that now connected every human mind. "We're no longer entirely human," she said. "We exist partially outside normal space-time now. We can't be defeated by conventional means, but we can't fully exist in your reality either." Ambassador Thane leaned forward. "Are you saying that humanity has become something else?" "We've become what we needed to become to save the galaxy," Kane replied. "But in doing so, we've confirmed your worst fears about us. We're now something that exists beyond the normal rules of physics and biology." The silence that followed was profound. Every alien representative understood the implications. Humanity had saved them all, but in doing so had transformed into something that made them even more dangerous than before. "What happens now?" asked Minister Colt. Kane considered the question. Around her, she could feel the presence of 8 billion altered human minds, all connected through the quantum network that had destroyed the plague. They were no longer just humans. They were something new, something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Now we go back to being quarantined," she said finally. "But this time, it's our choice. We'll monitor the galaxy, respond to threats that require our unique capabilities, but we'll stay isolated to prevent our condition from spreading." "And if other threats emerge?" asked Admiral Zethkar. Kane's smile was both reassuring and terrifying. then you'll know that somewhere in the galaxy there's a species that's willing to break every rule, sacrifice everything, and become something inhuman if that's what it takes to protect innocent life. The transmission ended, leaving the alien representatives to contemplate what they had witnessed. The galaxy was safe from the void plague, but now it contained something potentially even more dangerous, a species that had proven it would sacrifice its own humanity to save others. In the days that followed, the effects of Protocol 7 became clear. The humans who had participated in the network were forever changed. They could still function as individuals, but they remained connected to something larger, a collective consciousness that existed partially outside normal reality. General Kane stood in her office, looking out at Earth through windows that now showed not just the planet, but quantum probability matrices of what the planet could become. The network had given humanity abilities that bordered on precognition, but at the cost of their purely human nature. General. Dr. Chen entered, her movements slightly disconnected as she navigated between individual consciousness and the collective network. The analysis of Protocol 7's effects is complete. And we're stable, but we're no longer entirely bound by the normal rules of causality. We can perceive and interact with quantum possibilities directly. In effect, we've become a species that exists partially outside the normal universe. Kane nodded. She could feel the truth of those words in her bones. Every human could now sense the quantum foam that underlied reality, could perceive the probability chains that led to different futures. The aliens? They're maintaining their distance. The Galactic Council has officially classified Earth as a protected paradox zone. They're grateful for what we did, but they're also terrified of what we've become. Kane understood. Humanity had solved the problem of the void plague, but in doing so had proven that they were capable of things that other species considered impossible. They had used their own consciousness as a weapon, had rewritten reality through collective will, and had emerged as something that existed beyond the normal limitations of space and time. Any word from the outer colonies? The human settlements outside the Sol system are requesting guidance. They're dealing with the same changes we are, but they're more isolated. Some are having trouble maintaining individual identity. Kane felt a pang of guilt. The network had connected every human, regardless of location. Colonists who had never volunteered for the protocol had been changed just as dramatically as the defenders of Earth. Set up support networks, she ordered. We're all in this together now, whether we chose it or not. Over the following weeks, reports came in from across the galaxy. The void plague was completely gone, erased so thoroughly that it was as if it had never existed. The star systems it had consumed were restored, their populations saved by humanity's sacrifice. But the galaxy had also gained something new to fear, a species that had proven it would sacrifice its own nature to save others, that existed partially outside normal reality, and that possessed weapons that could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics. The quarantine around Earth remained in place, but now it was voluntary. Humanity had chosen isolation, not because they were forced to, but because they recognized that their new nature made them dangerous to other species. General. Colonel Park entered the office, his expression showing the strain of maintaining individual identity while connected to the collective network. We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're asking for our assistance with a new threat. Kane looked at the authorization codes on her desk. Red for Lazarus Array, black for Medusa Network, blue for Protocol 7. And now, a new code had appeared. White, for protocols that hadn't been invented yet but might be needed. What's the threat? Unknown entities emerging from dark matter. They're not consuming matter like the plague did, but they're changing it, transforming entire star systems into something else. Kane felt the collective consciousness of humanity stir with interest. The network that had destroyed the Void Plague was analyzing the new threat, calculating possibilities, preparing responses that no individual mind could conceive. "Tell the Council we'll consider their request," she said. "But make it clear that any assistance will come with the same costs as last time. We'll do what needs to be done, but we'll do it our way." As the transmission ended, Kane stood alone in her office, feeling the weight of 8 billion altered minds pressing against the consciousness. Humanity had saved the galaxy once, but in doing so had proven that they were capable of things that other species couldn't imagine. The galaxy was safer, but it was also more dangerous, because now it contained a species that had proven it would break every rule, sacrifice everything, and become something inhuman if that's what it took to protect innocent life. And somewhere in the quantum foam that surrounded Earth, new protocols were being written, weapons that existed only in possibility, defenses that could protect against threats that hadn't been invented yet, and capabilities that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The galaxy had called for help, and humanity had answered. But in doing so, they had become something that the galaxy would never fully understand or trust. They had become humanity's final evolution, a species that existed partially outside reality, connected by networks of consciousness that could rewrite the laws of physics, and dedicated to protecting innocent life regardless of the cost to themselves. The quarantine around Earth remained in place, but now it protected the galaxy from something far more dangerous than human weapons or human aggression. It protected the galaxy from humanity's compassion, because there was no limit to what humans would sacrifice to save others. And now, thanks to Protocol 7, there was no limit to what they were capable of sacrificing.